Advertising Week event. I'm Laura Mignot, co-founder of DigitalFlash.
Sarah Walker-Santana, co-founder of DigitalFlash, and we want to thank you all for being here tonight during Advertising Week. We know it's been a busy week for everybody, and we appreciate you chose to come to our gaming panel and participate and hear these very smart people talk about gaming. So we have a couple of house rules. We do not wait for Q&A at the end. Our house is your house, so please feel free to ask us questions, raise your hand. We'll have a couple of questions that we, of course, throw out to the panel, but we want to hear from you. We know you're smarter than all of us and ask the best questions. If you'd like to hashtag tonight, we're using hashtag DFGaming and then the Advertising Week hashtag, which is AWX. Closer. Okay. So, better? Better. Oh, now it's very loud. All right. Now you can really hear me. So those are really the ground rules. We look forward to having a great panel. Again, we thank Grind for offering us this lovely space. And if you ever want to learn more about Grind, you can come see us afterwards. And without further ado, we're going to let the panelists introduce themselves. We'll start with Jeff.
Hello, is this working? I'm Jeff Arbour. I'm one of the co-founders of Plyfe. Plyfe is an automated marketing and rich media platform, and we use game mechanics to engage audiences and understand them a little bit deeper. I've spent my entire career helping brands figure out how to utilize various mobile and social technologies, and this chapter, it's really all about how to get digital and social and mobile audiences to actually engage with brands.
Hey everybody, John Hendricks. I'm the founder of BoomBox. We're a digital agency downtown. We're about 10 years old. We have been focusing on gaming over the past few years because a lot of the work that clients have been asking us to do is gaming. And we have a vested interest in making sure that this is not something that is just part of the hype cycle. So, we've really put a lot of thought and discipline around that. We'll talk about it tonight.
Hi everyone, my name is Lynn. I'm a startup advisor as well as an angel investor. Until July of this year, I was the Chief Experience Officer at McCann Erickson. Previously, I spent about 15 years in the product design and digital agency space, AKQA, Sapient, and Bell Labs. I've always believed that if you start with the user experience, you will not go wrong, and that businesses will flourish.
I'm Patrick Sweeney. I'm the founder and CEO of dwinQ. We're a social media operating system for events. So we take whatever's going on, whatever amazing creative stuff that you guys and the agencies and the brands do, and we connect it to individuals' Facebook page. We put a branding over it, basically like product placement on Facebook, and then we give you all the data back as the brand. So our clients include Facebook, Nissan, Lexus, Nintendo, Molson. Most of the major brands are starting to connect all their events with social media, and a lot of them are doing a gamification. So for those of you who are skiers, we've got 600,000 people on our platform at Vail Resorts. It's something called Epic Mix, where it's kind of like a Nike Plus for skiers. So we did all the back end for that, and we continue to do those type of gamification, send up to social media for our clients. So thanks for having me here.
Cool, thanks guys. So we always have to start our events with a really serious, thought-provoking question that gets you really deep into the topic. Not really. So we always have an icebreaker question. And this time, since we're talking about gaming, the best question we could possibly ask you guys was what was your favorite game to play when you were a kid?
I'll start with Patrick. We'll go
the other way.
Start with me. That's easy. Spin the bottle.
We know what was going on in your childhood. Damn.
I had a very fun childhood.
Where did you grow up?
I'm a Boston guy, but Jeff told me not to bring that up because everyone's hurting about the baseball playoffs, so I wasn't going to say anything.
And you brought it up.
And the crowd loses Patrick.
For me, I think it would be Monopoly, because I like to make money and build houses.
Mine's more basic, Asteroids, which was the most ridiculous game.
I'm gonna say Ghost in the Graveyard. I think because of the emotional connection when I think about it. Because like I think of Ghost in the Graveyard. I think of being a kid. I think of staying out late, using flashlights, being in the dark, and I think that's one of the great things about gaming is that it taps into your emotion. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that. Although I do wish I said spin the bottle. It's way better of an answer.
I love how you all went non-digital for that answer. You really threw us for a loop.
Well, I mean, they have digital versions of all that, right?
Yeah, now. But I was thinking Pong or Atari or, I don't know, Pac-Man. All right, well now we're going to get a little more serious. I guess really the topic of this panel is called the science of gamification, and that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. So we would like to hear from you how you would actually define that term, or maybe even if it's not the science, really what does gamification mean to you if you don't want to get actually into the science. So Jeff, you could take it away.
So we don't really use the word gamification because I mean we're marketers, and we have a marketing platform, so we solve problems, and one of the biggest problems that a lot of brands are encountering across the evolution of digital is how do you engage audiences. So we're an engagement company, and we happen to use game mechanics as one of the tactics to engage audiences. Does that answer your question?
Makes sense.
We, very similarly, we're an engagement company. I think what you're seeing right now is because gaming is search friendly, you see a lot of that. So you're going to say you do gaming, but we're trying to make it much bigger than it is. I think the big transition point of the term gaming into game science really comes down to the whole dopamine thing, the true science of it, and the brain chemistry and the way that whole thing works. And we've been doing a lot of work over the past few years bridging that into behavioral science. And for us, that really is about driving double ROIs. So not just getting some basic engagement metrics, but getting dollar value at the end of it that's highly measurable.
For me, gamification is really about understanding humans. It's about understanding triggers and motivations, because at the end of the day, that you have to give people reason, and you have to tap into that person's inner psyche, whether that is to reward them for something, to bring out the competitor in them. I think that gamification really taps on these very basic human emotions. I think there is a science behind it because it's a proven method. There is a sense of rules and philosophies around it. So I think that now the challenge for us is to start broadening that set of rules to see if new technology and digital platforms give us new rules to play with.
And I think from my perspective, gamification is just all about fun. So people want to have fun, do things that are fun. It happens, it used to be on Monopoly on boards or at carnivals or whatever, and now we've taken it digital, and there's going to be social proof around it. There's going to be a lot of whether it's dopamine or adrenaline or different type of endorphins that you release. There's all sorts of scientific explanations, but I think it boils down to a game being fun and engaging. And if a brand can tie themselves to something that's fun and engaging, then there's a positive brand association, and you've unwittingly created a brand champion. We've got a question, got a couple questions back there. Wow, look at that.
Okay, so my question, so I'm Adrian, and I work in healthcare, in the healthcare space. So I work there question is, for the panel, you know, as behaviors change, as people change and everything like that, do we think that we're going to have to do something in the form of technology to help trigger and change those triggers, or do we think it's going to naturally evolve over time? And the reason that I ask, and I'm going to give you an example. Remember back in the day, folks used to say, why is your mobile phone so big? And then it became, oh, now your mobile phone's tiny, and now nobody cares that you have a big honking, you know, whatever, Android or whatever you're using. And so technology, and the woman here is sort of explaining that technology has impacted the perception, I guess, of what that means. Or do we think it's just going to, you know, naturally evolve as humans, where our behaviors will just change, and will we wait on that? Like, what do you think? What do you think the emphasis is going to be?
So I'll take a gander. So I think that the technology is giving you a platform to manifest that understanding of human motivation, right? So let me give one concrete example. When I look at a post on Facebook, right, so I'm looking at my news feed, there's actually an element of gamification, or at least that I've detected, which is that they want you to respond to your friend's post. So you've noticed how cunningly your little thumbnail already shows up there, almost to prepare you to react to that person's post, right? So I think that, you know, that's an example where it's an app that was being designed to do something, but it's looking within the ecosystem, that screen of that app, to say, what can I do to still trigger those same you know, desires to contribute, to share something, and then to hear someone validate what I just shared. So that's one example I can give.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else want to take some things down?
I think going back to the behavioral piece, probably less about the technology and more about how we're going to interact with those things. If you think of the notion of top of mind, you know, advertising and marketing, where, you know, everybody's trying to get there, it's momentary, it's elusive. You drop a lot of money on the Super Bowl ad. Where we're seeing the action is in the bottom of mind, in the subconscious area, using a really prolonged, sustained engagement. So if I told you that I could create this experience in your mind that you thought that you've been driving a BMW, test driving it for 3 months, the way the mind works, as I'm sure you're aware, we can't differentiate whether we've actually done it or if it's sort of what we call like a virtual memory. So that behavioral, the sustained amount of time for applying any of this gaming stuff, where the difference where it becomes sort of a momentary thing versus a way of delivering your brand experience in a compelling way that's going to drive people is really around that, the subconscious.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of closing the gap, right? Where you have a technology and you have humans, and gamification is kind of making technology a little bit more human, right? You have, you know, encouragement, you have goals, you have tasks. So we really see it as sort of more relationship building, if you will, and kind of moving away and making technology a little bit softer.
It's a good segue to a question we have for. We'll come back to it, don't worry. Is, John, you were mentioning something about some subconscious engagement, and I think it would be cool if you could sort of expand upon that, because I'm sure most of the folks here don't know what we're talking about. So, go for it.
Sure. So if you look at the data, you know, Gartner is predicting that by the end of next year, about 80% of the games that are out there by the Fortune 1000 enterprises are going to fail to meet their objectives. And you say, gee, why is that? And a lot of it is because of the lack of discipline that has been put around it. So having, like you guys, in this space for a long time, for, you know, in my case, 20 years, you know, we've seen Web 1.0 sort of, you know, hypes came back, there was something underneath it. We've seen social hype come back, there's something underneath it. There's a risk, as they're saying, that this could sort of come and go. There have been points in time in history where things like database marketing was in real jeopardy of never sticking because it wasn't sold the right way, it wasn't used the right way, and they dismissed an entire extremely powerful way of marketing in that case. So what we decided to do was we pulled in from clinical science. We have a lot of folks in our firm that have come from the healthcare industry. So Dr. Prochaska has built a whole body of behavioral stage changes to get people to change the way they interact. And we built out of that a set of best practices so that we know going into an assignment, if a client comes to us and says, hey, we want to use some of this gamification to build our brand, sometimes they have an idea, sometimes they don't have an idea. We overlay this model, and we know, we have a very high degree of certainty knowing that we're going to get an ROI against a very specific goal because we know A, what behavioral stage we want, and B, we know what needs to happen. So we talked about the sustained engagement. For us, it has to be between 8 and 12 weeks. Other than that, it's going to be a blip in a pan, a flash in a pan. You have to have thematic relevance. So you can tell a story. We've all seen some of these cases that, there was the chocolate bar. There's a lot of cases where you're looking at it and say, that's really cool, but you have no idea who the brand was doing it, why they were doing it, and they were just sort of putting some of these game mechanics into it. So it really is about storytelling.
Cool. All right, what a question.
Yeah, so I'm kind of, I'm a blogger and I do a lot on fashion and style and beauty. Is gamification literally playing an actual game, or can it also involve contests and giveaways and ways to increase engagement? I was just curious about that.
Yeah, so gamification is essentially applying gaming aspects to non-gaming things, right? It's such a broad explanation, definition, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it could be fashion related, it could be hot or not, it could be contests, and again, like the reason why we stay away from gamification is we sit down with people and we identify, okay, what are some of the issues, the problems that you're trying to solve, whether it's get your Facebook audience to actually interact with you after they like your page, or whether it's getting people to discover more of your products on your e-commerce site. And then there's various game mechanics that you can utilize to drive those goals or to solve those problems. So we have a bunch of like opinionated type widgets that you can drop onto a page. So in e-commerce, the internet was built on hot or not, right? Like Tinder is still the hottest app out there today. And so we have a hot or not widget, right? And from a product standpoint, you basically are discovering products or identifying intent based on what the consumer selects as top versus not, and then you're using that information to solve your end goal in the e-commerce situation, is probably sales.
Okay, so it's not just like, what's that game where like there's like the birds and the pigs?
No.
If you look at what really good brands have used this very effectively, so one of the things we did at for the America's Cup for Lexus is they wanted to connect people besides just walking around drinking beer and looking at the cup, so they created a mobile app that was basically fantasy sailing. So it was just like fantasy football, and they got friends to compete against each other and say, hey, we can we can predict the fastest speed, we can predict who's going to win it. So they took this experience that one person was feeling on site. So they may have spent $1 million and 100,000 people showed up. So they're paying $10 a person for these people to experience this event over the course of weeks. By turning it into a game and enlisting their friends on Facebook, they're saying, hey, I think we can get, I think the Oracle is going to be dead after the third race or what have you, we're going to bet on it. And they start this online banter and competition. Now they bring in a whole nother group of people who weren't at that experience. So that's gamifying an event, which has been very effective in amplifying an event.
Just a quick one for you to look at. Look at fascism. So you're from fashion. I think that's a brilliant example of a whole, app experience where, you're really encouraging participation, and there is a link out into where you can buy the product. So I love that, cyclical ecosystem.
I'm going to take a slightly different tact on this. I want to go on record as saying that in 3 years from now, gaming is going to be very different than the way it is now. I think we're in our complete infancy of it. I think we're doing some of the, what I would call the low-hanging fruit of this stuff. When this stuff really clicks and we get a sophistication with it, as we have with social, as we have with web, you won't even know that it's a game. And I am already, you can point to very strong references where there's strong precedences. The military uses it already for training and simulation. This stuff has been out there for a very long time. It's new for us using it for branding, and we're going for, again, for I think the things that are right in front of us. But this is going to change massively, and I highly doubt 3 years from now we're going to be using the words that we're all saying right now.
Let me disagree completely.
Already.
Okay, so I got to say that nothing is going to change, and gaming hasn't changed. So the modern day spin the bottle is called Tinder or Hinge, right? It's so if you look at any of the games today, it's again all about that base having fun. The technology to enable it changes, but you always know you're playing a game, and you always know it's going to be something fun and engaging and competitive.
So you guys are talking a lot about the kind of end user and sort of dancing around the brands a bit, but you all, in essence, have the brands as your clients. So what are these kinds of conversations like when the brands are coming to you? What are they asking for from your respective companies? Are you sort of being the creative for them, or do they have a bit of an idea when they're coming to you, and how your platforms or ideas solving problems for them? So I don't know if Patrick, you want to start, and then
Sure,
you can kind of
yeah,
go on down the line.
I can start out very easily because we don't do creative at all. We just make creative better. So they come to us and they say, we need to share this on social. We've got this great idea. I mean, we work with most of the major agencies out there. So I would say 7/8 of our clients come to us with an agency, and they have something they're going to do, and they want to connect it to social through our social media operating system. So we take away the friction of connecting individuals. And basically what we provide is product placement on social media, because everyone looks at particularly last year, if you guys haven't seen it and you're in the digital world, McKinsey and Nielsen teamed up to come out with this study in December of last year, and it has percentage of buying influence on social media. And if someone's going to buy a car, they break it down by country. 32 to 38% of the people are going to look to their social network for advice on buying that car. So all of our clients want product placement on social media. So they want to see me and Lynn crossing the line at the Ironman with the Under Armour logo down at the bottom. That's exactly what they want.
I think most times clients come to us and they say, I want engagement and awareness, right? I think those are the two things. But when you dig a little deeper and try to uncover what's underneath engagement, that's where you kind of have to ask questions that bring up kind of the business goals. So are you looking at conversions? Are you looking at maybe establishing your brand in a region or a market where you have no presence? So I think agencies and the ones who are being consulted have the responsibility to kind of guide the client down the right path. I mean, we still do get clients that say I want to build something cool. I just need to have some buzz, or I need to have this go viral. And I think that's where all of us in the room who interact with clients, well, it's our responsibility to kind of get them to the KPIs. I mean, fancy term, but really business goals.
It's advertising week.
We have a variety. They come to us both ways. So we work with a lot of work with Delta Airlines, and we've done a bunch over the past few years of game programs. One of the ones that they came to us was that they wanted to drive incremental ticket sales for people that were going to take a trip within the next few months, for people that were not already loyal SkyMile flyers. So we built a program around that, and we said, gee, what should we do? Well, let's go out to the loyal people. Very easy to do. We know the people that are already flying. Went out to them and said, hey, why don't you guys be team captains and go out and get people, and we'll have this big competition. If you're one of those captains and you want to win, you're going to earn SkyMiles, and you're going to be competitive on the leaderboard. You're going to choose people that are going to fly, and you're going to choose people that you're going to be very selfish in that. And so we were able to model that all the way through. We knew going into it, we were able to project what the engagement was going to be, and most importantly, what the revenue was going to be off of that.
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with the client that we're working with. So we basically, we help clients and customers, brands, agencies, healthcare providers, acquire audiences, influence audiences, and understand those audiences better. So we utilize the mechanics based on what their specific objectives are. It varies. Like we have people who are just looking to engage their Facebook audience and trying to not only increase that engagement, but as a result, increase the reach of their messaging. We have some customers who are looking to drive understanding of content. We do a lot of work in healthcare, we go to the quality care, actually teaching people how to live healthier, using game mechanics to make that more fun and also more measurable. So again, we're marketers and we're a marketing platform. So we always start with what's your problem? What are some of the things you're trying to solve, or the issues that you're having, and then we try and apply our game logic, our game technology, our gaming platform to solve those problems. In many instances, it's a proper solution, and in some instances, it's not. But at the end of the day, there's a number of similarities across customers, across our customers. There's a number of unique nuances. We kind of try to mix and match the mechanics to fit the need.
I was just going to echo that. I love the concept that Jeff raised about gaming for good. I think that's a brilliant idea, and something that brands can do that benefit the consumers and that they still get this halo for the brand. I love that idea.
And one of the really cool things for gaming, if for those of you who don't have kids, there's a couple games out there that encourage kids to both learn and to exercise. Like the Khan Academy is one of the really big things that you can go take lessons, and kids get really jazzed about earning more points or stars or whatever. And so it's definitely gaming for good, if you will.
Yeah, I think Patrick brought up two words that we use a lot as well. I keep breaking this mic. We want to make things more fun. Life is a game. Have fun.
So you mentioned measurement. Are there new and exciting metrics that are possible through gamification or gaming platforms that we might not have now to date in terms of, proving to our clients that engagement has improved?
For us, the exciting metric is the dollar.
Good point.
What we're really stoked about is digital measurement of movement, right? Like we have these devices that people are wearing on their wrists, or
One by
cell, and using that information to understand who these people are a little bit better. So in healthcare, it's really relevant, right? Like you can measure not only someone's knowledge about health, but actually how healthy they are. Are they going out? How many steps are they taking? How many miles are they running on a daily basis? Then you can utilize that information to understand that individual a little bit better, and then give them the information that's most relevant to them, or maybe the encouragement that's most relevant for them. So that's something that we're really excited about, is utilizing the measurement of new areas and applying that to give people information that they need.
To sort of build on that quick before we change.
Now you get two mics.
You were talking about gaming for good, and then there's gaming for what I would say really good. Going back to the metrics, if you think of the number of kids that have asthma in this country, and about 75% of them are admitted to hospitals because they don't treat their asthma properly. So it's very simple. You shake it, you squeeze it, you hold it in for 30 seconds. They've tried everything. They've tried videos, they've tried parental intervention, they've tried classrooms, they've tried you name it, literature, bribery. And the thing that is working is that they've gamified it. They've come up with a mechanism around it so that when you shake it, when you inhale it, when you take your breath, you're getting a success metric, which is basically what in effect is the sensation of a ball going into a pinball drain in a good way. And that's the behavior building, so doing that in a very simple way. So you would say, what's the metric off of that? I think it comes back to, again, you're getting successful compliance in that case.
And the only other point that I'd bring about making a gamification social is that you can get fantastic metrics around who engages. So typically, what we do, a great example, we did the Paris Motor Show for Nissan, and they had a couple different games, and one of the things that they pulled out of it was all the women who were there under the age of 42 years old with a secondary degree education, 80% liked Rihanna.
That's awesome.
They had no idea, but now they're doing videos with Rihanna around the cars, particularly this thing called the L Micra, around the cars specifically because they got this data back from people who were engaging with the gamification. So Facebook allows a tremendous amount of insight and things that you can pull from it.
That's so cool. So believable. And Tony, so you had a question.
Yeah, I'm right here. I'm hearing all these like great fields that you guys are sort of pulling from: healthcare, psychology, behavioral science, marketing. I'm like kind of interested, like, what is your gamification dream team? And because that seems like a lot of opportunities for people's careers. Like, you're in healthcare, science, etc. Like, this is a whole new field for me. So what's your dream team?
I put Rihanna on it just to start with.
Of course. And place in the bottle with.
Rihanna, spin the bottle. Yeah, I can see this is a.
I think that's a win.
I'm not sure I want to have this dream in front of all of you.
We're all in Patrick's head now.
For me, the dream team will consist of left-brainers and right-brainers. So I definitely see the intersection of data specialists and folks who understand the emotion and the psychology.
And Rihanna.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great point. You want there's a variety of different, very deep expertises, and to get them into a sort of a teaming mentality. What we're talking about right now, most of us, the mobile-first strategy. As soon as Google Glass goes on, I mean, the cool stuff you're going to be able to do there. So having somebody that's got a deep T with that, and then having a behavioralist that can translate that, and a creative strategist that can, extend that.
If I had a dream team, I'd want to figure out why people do stuff. So what's the driving factor behind? And this is probably right up your alley. Why do people want to share the photo when they're alone or maybe with one other person at this great Italian restaurant in Venice? What compels them to want to share the picture of the buffalo mozzarella, right? And I think that stuff would be interesting to know.
I don't know if I have a dream team, so I'm just not going to answer that question. But I would totally be down to hang out with Rihanna as well.
You're just happy to have a mic.
Spin the bottle.
That's a common theme across the panel tonight is talking about major brands, Molson, Delta. What's the opportunity for like upstart emerging technology or non-technology companies to get the analytics to really, as opposed to, like, I work with a lot of upstart companies, and doing it without an agency or a platform as a standalone, it just seems like the cost of entry is too great but I just would love to hear what you guys are seeing out there. Obviously you're working with big brands, but is there an opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, we work with brands like, top 100 advertisers down to small nonprofits, down to early stage startups. Really, we say, any company that has a digital presence or aspires to have a digital presence can, utilize our platform and as a result, gamification. It's all about making things more fun, a little bit more personal. I mean, you think about it like every time a user touches their computer or picks up their phone or goes onto Facebook, like, you're competing against all these other great apps like Angry Birds and Rihanna's Twitter or Rihanna's Instagram or whatever the hell that is. So we just want to make those experiences more fun in a scalable and cost-effective way. So I don't really think there's a right size, company size to dictate whether or not it's appropriate.
I think an area for us to look at is small businesses, and I work a lot with startups, and there's a startup called Perka, whose purpose is to help small businesses get on the loyalty bandwagon. And I think there's a rich area there because it's called Perka, P-E-R-K-A, and its aim is to bring loyalty to small businesses, white labeled, but to get them to be able to enjoy the benefits of gamification for their respective businesses.
I think just from my perspective, we don't work with small companies, so we're primarily Fortune 500. But I have seen, so I'm a pretty active investor. I'm in Y Combinator and a few other things, and I found out about good investments, and I've learned about small companies through social media. So, and it's easy and it's accessible from a brand perspective, not necessarily from an ad, but if you can somehow or another figure out how to take away the friction of sharing something about a brand. So if you have a brand champion who already likes your product, whatever it is, and you can get them to share that organically in their news feed, in the stream, because ads suck, and not only do they not work, they piss people off, right? Because people go to Facebook with the intent of socializing, right? They don't have a buying intent. If you're at Costco and some lady walks up to you and hands you a pigs in the blanket, you're gonna say, okay, well, I'll try it because I'm here to shop and I get the shopping intent. If you're at the pub hanging out with your friends and some guy interrupts and says, hey, let me tell you about this new car with the anti-lock brakes, like, dude, chill out. So if you can capture that point when they're not expecting it and it's in the news feed and it's in the user stream, and do that with social media, I think that's incredibly powerful. So it's up to you to figure out how to do it, and that's where you add value, I assume.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I think to underscore that, we also work with, our focus is on large companies, but whatever you do, it's really the thought that you put into it and the planning that you put into it and the objectives. I think probably one of the biggest issues that happened with Groupon was that it was this hammer running around looking for a problem, and everybody got on board. There was a lot of people that signed on to it that really, they didn't stick. What they just had was this massive amount of churn. So it was an interesting, platform, and they're coming through a metamorphosis. But I think at that point in time, there was this rush towards something that seemed like it was going to be a big way to improve their business, without the thought. If there was more thought put into how they were going to use it, it could have been a great acquisition vehicle.
I saw someone in the question there.
Jumping on two things you're talking about. One is that you said 3 years from now, the language and everything's going to change. Plus, you talked about there's apps now where you can actually track how people are doing things for health reasons. Do you see dynamic gamification coming along, or more customized gamification, so that you have algorithms and programs that are sophisticated enough that based on how people are acting and responding to what's going on in a site, there are certain ways that you can customize rewards and motivators and rewards specifically to that individual person, so it's different for me as opposed to him or her or anybody else.
Yeah. I mean, it's already here. Yeah, definitely. Utilizing the information that we're able to learn about our audiences, we customize and personalize experiences accordingly, which I think is one of the main benefits of gamification is it allows us to learn about audiences, and then cater to them on more of an individual basis. And that relates to healthcare, it relates to e-commerce, it doesn't really matter. The more that you understand about your audience, the more opportunity you have to personalize communication, the more effective that communication is going to be.
Yeah, I think it's the binding constraint there is not about the technology, and it's not even about the data anymore. It's about the imagination. What are the different experiences that you can serve up to everybody? If we think of the early days of database marketing and CRM, there was this, hey, we can capture all this data and then we can personalize web experiences, emails, and everything else. And when you looked at all the data, the bell curve really came around 2 or 3 different types of differentiation. So all there was not much of a deep tell. So I think that's really where the storytelling comes in now.
Really, when you engage a person, I mean, as you said, the person might not be in the mood to accept your invitation to drive this car while you're in the bar, right? So audience mood detection, right? So it's probably a multi-channel thing, right? Because the mind of a person where he's going to accept your message at that time, right? It's going to have to be driven by multiple sources. It could be Twitter feed, it could be an ad, it could be YouTube, it could be, so it's this integration of all these channels. And then what is the next vector you're going to drive him, right? So eventually you want to drive him up and up to the conversion trajectory where he comes to your site or he leaves the response. right? And then you're going to have to pick it up at a different stage the next day or next month, right? So this implies your system has to have a lot of back-end memory, right? So just, so I don't know what stage, but your search engine does that to you, kind of.
What I think you sort of hit the nail on the head with what the subconscious engagement does. So what we're trying to do is identify specific mindsets. So, if and it's relative to a given brand. So I may be in the contemplation stage of buying a car. I may be in the pre-contemplation of, getting a credit card. I may be in the maintenance stage of drinking Red Bull. So the relativity to that, regardless of time of day, day of week, the channel convergence or divergence, it's really how are you moving me through, what are the techniques, are you getting me to explore. So for pre-contemplation, we're not talking about awareness issues anymore, we're talking about how are you going to get me to think about your brand, and it's not going to be in a bar. So what you're serving up is, okay, get me to think about how my life is going to be different with that in a way that I care about.
I love the description that you gave, because when you said it, I thought about ambient gamification, right? Which is going to be possible now as devices not just move with us, but are kind of in front of us. So the friction completely goes away. But I think also, to kind of tee off of John's point, it's this notion of maybe lifelong gamification, right? Where it's no longer just that one card that you have that you only use when you're going on board a flight, but it's this lifetime sense of relationships that you're having with different brands. So I thought that your comment actually could potentially point the way to what the future might be.
But I think we're seeing some of the future already in some of the big social platforms. So one of the more interesting things that's starting to come out of Facebook, and I'm not sure how much they've talked about it or not, is this aspect of deep learning. So they're going well beyond artificial intelligence, and they've got a team of about a dozen engineers on this aspect of trying to derive your sentiment. So they're trying to find out what mood you're in, and then they're going to give you things based on that mood. So you all probably know about the EdgeRank algorithm now, which allows you to see friends that you want to see or that they think you want to see. So they want to take that one step further and try and judge your mood and serve you information and data based on that. So that'll be a huge platform from an advertising perspective when Facebook and Google and other folks get that sentiment analysis going.
I mean, how many people here are in an airline mile program? So you guys are all, it's a gamification program, right? Like, you're earning points.
And you can't leave.
You're leveling up, you're earning status, you're utilizing your points for rewards. It's just
I flew here from Boston with 3 stops.
On that idea, on that concept. So that directly correlates, right? CRM, like, loyalty programs are CRM, right? And it's all about audience understanding and personalization. Gamification is just, or what we're calling gamification today, it could be just an extenuation of that.
So I have a question for Lynn.
Yes.
So now that you've left the agency world and you're now an advisor and an investor, what's the advice you're giving to startups and brands and agencies when it comes to gaming from your experience?
I think the advice is going to be slightly different depending on which half of that universe. So I'll start with agencies. So on the agency side, the advice that I would give is, go deeper in understanding kind of what your clients need and what ultimate business goals they're driving to. What I'm seeing a lot of on the agency side are very siloed requests, right? So whether it's a campaign, which, in a retail calendar, there are certain moments in the year where certain campaigns are being run. So they're being run, and then when it's over, it kind of stops. So what I'm seeing are very disparate efforts that might happen and be funded by various, maybe once funded by the CMO, once funded by the CI. So you get all these disparate efforts at gamification that may not link up. So my advice to folks in the agency side will be really to break down the walls between you and your client, as well as help them find synergies between the different divisions within their organization. On the tech side of things, people who are building product, I would say that clients look to you to bring them the best ideas of what's the most leading edge, whether it's the interface design or the technology that's going to power it. So for those people, I would say you have to learn to speak the language of your client's needs. But also, I think ultimately to understand that what you do is serving a larger purpose on the brand side. Yeah.
And what? Oh, Charlie, I'll let you go first.
Great panel. Thank you so much for all this great information. I'm probably your client's nightmare, right? In that I am not a gaming person. I don't like it. It annoys me. There's very few games that I play that I actually like, and to get me engaged in a gamification type thing is very difficult. Okay. I work in marketing. I should also say that. I mean, I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I would love to participate in some of these things, but they just don't interest me. I find that they're annoying, and they always feel, it feels obtrusive, it feels invasive in some ways. I would like, and I want to know if it's out there, because I'm not really at the forefront of any of this, I would love to see kind of implementation of gamification with some of the news and the important topics of the day, and if the gamification can help me to process that information in a way that's more fun and more engaging and that ties into the product, that would be awesome. You would actually win me over. So my question is that somewhat happening? Do you see that as a possibility? Am I so crazy that it doesn't make sense, or what?
So crazy doesn't make sense.
I would just say.
It's happening every day. It's happening every day on every news website that you go to.
Scoop it.
The position,
Everything.
I mean, the positioning of articles is directly related to the number of clicks that those articles get. Therefore, those sites are gamified. So, there's a big difference between gaming and then the gamification. So to kind of put it all in one bucket, it's just not an accurate viewpoint. So there's gamification that's happening around you every day that you don't even know it's there, and you think you hate it, but you're stoked that you're reading the most important Onion article when you log on to the funniest one. You know what I'm saying? It's there. It's happening in the background every day.
And I think that's really going back to the notion of the sophistication of it will increase, and I do think the language will change. It will start to disappear like good technology. It'll sort of fade into the background.
So I guess we have another question for you guys, and it's kind of echoing a little bit what Charlie just asked you, but maybe a little bit differently. What kind of challenges are you seeing? I mean, gamification is everywhere, as we're just discussing. It is kind of part of our everyday lives, and we don't even know it with airplane miles and BuzzFeed and everything that we're being bombarded with. It is really serving up what we love best. But I think there has to be some challenges with this industry. Maybe it's on the tech side, maybe it's on the user side, maybe it's on the client side. So if you could just share, we don't like it to be all roses here. So give us the down and dirty.
When it goes horribly wrong.
Buzzwords kill us. It's the same thing that happened with mobile. So the same thing that happened with social. People started focusing on social. People started focusing on mobile. They started focusing on technology. And they forgot about being a good marketer. And that's what always, excuse my language, fucks shit up. In marketing advertising. We're all marketers at the end of the day. Or if you're in marketing, we're all marketers at the end of the day. And this is just one way to enhance your message or solve your problem. But first, figure out what that problem is, and then figure out how to solve it. Don't worry about the buzzwords. Don't worry about if it's gaming or gamification or whatever the hell people are saying. That's the thing that makes it the hardest for us to explain and actually have people hear what we're doing is buzzwords.
Yeah, I echo that. I think in addition to the fear of the buzzwords, is the expectation. So we walked into an assignment somewhat recently, bringing the game science and subconscious engagement component to the program that was already largely defined, and the notion was we were going to just add some game stuff to it. And for us, we don't structure it that way. We start with, what's the engagement that you're trying to create and sustain, and build everything else around it. So those other, all these things need to work in a very convergent way, but not just adding a little bit of the stuff on top of it.
My watch out would be that a lot of the gamification platforms are actually digital, right? And so I think agencies need to acknowledge and realize that what could be worse than gamification is if you have a great idea and it's not executed right? Because then you lose all credibility as the person who was responsible for the initiative. So I think acknowledging that the manifestation of gamification is most likely a product, whether it's an app or some kind of a digital experience, and that you have to get the experts in, or at least to work with them to make sure it's flawless. If not, you've just wasted time and money.
I'd say a slightly different tack from our perspective. It's the lack of understanding of technology. So a concrete example on the down and dirty, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks or 8 weeks ago, we did an event for NASCAR, and it was a home run in Bristol, Tennessee, in the middle of nowhere. Tons of people, lots of engagement, big viral hit because the creative was good. And so another brand saw it, and they said, hey, we want to do this at Richmond. We want to do the exact same thing. In our contract, it says that for each area we have, we need 2 megs of dedicated uplink, 2 megs of dedicated downlink. They showed up on site with an AT&T MiFi card, honest to God, and they're saying, they're talking about 1,000 people an hour going through the system and everything else, trying to do it on a friggin' 4G card, and we said, what about the 2 meg up and down? They said, Sprint is the NASCAR sponsor. They wanted $2,000 extra to have that bandwidth, and we said, okay, well you're gonna throw away $75,000 because you won't pay the $2,000. It was a nightmare.
So I think this wouldn't be an advertising week panel unless we had to ask this question. What really is the ROI of gamification in the activations that you are doing today?
So we've driven sales. We've actually increased lift 130%. For consumers on how much they spend on a particular brand over the course of 2 months. We've increased engagement across social content, 15x for one of our most recent CPG clients, and social sharing 12 times. We've driven actual sales, we've driven emails, and again, it's figure out what your KPI is and what your goals are, and ideally, if it's right, we're pull up the right mechanics to reach those goals. So it varies, but it's right down to the transaction. Like we're selling shit, man.
We're really beyond this one. Say we're militant about getting a double or triple digit ROI. When we're in the briefing process with clients, if we can't map it back to a hard dollar value, we go back to the mill. Nothing leaves our shop until we get that model, and if we really can't get that model, then we go back to the client and we say we think we're asking for the wrong thing, because we live or die based on that, how much it's going to.
On my end, I would say that the metrics of success are defined very differently for every client, and I would hold myself and my teams accountable to those numbers. And incidentally, an analytics team is the pairing for a lot of our engagements. So there's accountability from the outset.
And for us, I think it depends on client, but it's all relative to social media. So last year we did the Olympics, 2012 Olympics in London for Cadbury. We brought 20,000 people through this Cadbury House activation. We got 7 million earned endorsements on Facebook. from the experience. Their agency, who did the creative on it, went and said, okay, if we got 7 million impressions during BBC during the Olympics, that would have cost $2 million. The activation was just over 200,000 US, so it was a 10x ROI for them, and we nominated for 14 awards. We won 8 of them. So it was really, it was a great, yeah, it was a big thing.
Oh yeah, just one more thing. We don't charge you if it doesn't work. So we actually work on an engagement model. So if the campaign doesn't get you the lift you want, we don't charge you.
Hi, I'm Mac from Gamification Co. I'm a contributor writer there. Just a quick question. Like, so far we've seen really good examples of when gamification worked. Could you share some experiences where, from your companies or personal experience, when gamification didn't turn out as you wanted it to be? What are some of the unintended consequences, and what are the lessons, the key takeaway for us to know about?
When gamification goes wrong.
I'll tell you the one thing that doesn't work. Spam your friends. There's a chance to win.
Chance to win X. Spam your friends for an additional chance to win X. Or spam your friends for a bunch of X's. Like, that doesn't work.
And no charge if that happens.
Yeah. We will not do that. We will send you down the road.
For me, remember I talked about execution and the ability to flawlessly build. A lot of the examples that I encountered were those that, for whatever reason, the thing didn't get built right.
I can't really think of anything because we don't have any specific, but we've got some funny examples from Vail Resorts. So the Vail Resorts, the Epic Mix thing is kind of like Nike Plus for skiing. So you track your vertical feet and you earn different badges and that sort of thing. And so we've had anecdotally heard a couple family members complain about other family members. Say like they won't stop for lunch, they're skiing to the last lift, the kids are crying, he's got to get 10,000 more feet than his brother-in-law. So
I think that probably the thing that comes to mind is we did a different program for Delta, and we did a red coat challenge because that's how you deliver their brand experience. That's one of the big points of differentiation for them. So we took red coats and we did scavenger hunts all over New York City for about 8 weeks. The unfortunate thing was that Hurricane Sandy decided to walk right through that, and man, what a challenge! But we completely recovered from that, and we ended up winning 3 Webby Awards and a whole bunch of other ones. So, and it was the ROIs were very strong in that.
I was actually going to kind of parlay on her question before, because I imagine with the fact that you guys don't really work with small companies as much, the larger the companies, obviously you're dealing with kind of quality versus quantity in terms of the type of work you get to do. It's kind of 2 questions. One, what are your favorite types of clients to work for, to pitch? Because I imagine you're trying to move the practice forward in terms of gamification, the understanding, without going too much into kind of the God particle of gamification, but being relevant. Like, I'm interested in terms of, are there certain types of clients that you absolutely try to get because it's going to move the practice forward? And are there certain ones that you try to say, okay, we'll bring you into our repertoire, but we know it's going to be painful, kind of like the digital adoption. Some are going to be lip service, some are going to really move you guys to where you can establish yourself even further.
I'll take that. That's an easy one for us. Our clients, my favorite clients have a set of balls. And I don't mean that gender-ishly. I mean...
None taken.
I mean it from the perspective of willing to try something new. So it's a lot of the stuff we're doing has never been done before. And there's always some clown who can second guess it. Right? And there's never anyone who wants to be the first one. So, for instance, we did this 12-city tour for Lexus this summer on ride and drives. And they said, we spend a lot of money and 300 people show up per day, but it's really tough to justify. So we worked with their agency, Team One, and we mounted a GoPro on the outside of the car, a GoPro on the inside of the car, and they take it through an autocross course. We took a 30-second video of the person, and they're like, woo! woo! And you can see the thing going on, and then we posted it, before they got out of the car, it was posted on YouTube and Facebook with the Lexus logo on the top of it. And we talked to at least 6 companies before Lexus said we want to do it, and now they're they've already signed up for next year, and it's a huge. So the first ones are always the most fun, the ones who are willing to take the chance and do. And we had the first activation, we had a ton of growing pains, like we didn't know where people were, which cars to use, a lot of logistics and stuff. But they were cool about it. I mean, they were really, really good about it, and they said, okay, well, we got it worked out, and then the rest of the summer was just a home run.
For me, it would be clients that want to play in the space of physical space intersecting with digital spaces, particularly retail, where there is a very clear conversion, whether it's purchase in store or online. The second area that I'm intrigued are disrupting industries like banking, for example. And previously Move-In Bank was one of the startups that I advised, and I just think it's fun to disrupt current industries with gaming.
I think to flip the coin over, look at it from the other way, it's the whole world. The challenging ones are the ones that are regulated, or constrained by regulation. So we do work in the financial services area. We have some big Fortune 50 corporate clients that have now become banks, and they love to do it. They've got great ideas, and then it goes through compliance. And it's like you can't do it. Pharma and healthcare. I mean, there's such massive restrictions against this stuff. But that doesn't mean that it can't be done. You just need a client who really is willing to spend the political capital to at least incrementally get that going.
Are you going to say helpful to work with an agency or to work direct with the brand? What scenario do you prefer?
Well, in our case, we are an agency. So we're a full-service digital agency with a very heavy-duty focus on game science.
It depends on the agency and it depends on the brand. Seriously, you've got agencies who are out there and who are really looking to do great work. They're really looking to innovate. They're looking to change, looking to disrupt. You have clients out there who are looking to disrupt, to just change. And then you have brands who are just looking to get their bonus. You have agencies who are just trying not to get fired. So our ideal client is someone who's looking to do something that's going to move the business forward. And someone who doesn't use capital letters in emails. And also someone who never uses the urgent flag. I mean, give me a break. We don't like those people.
All right, guys. Last question, so it better be good. Think about it. It better be good. I'm going to let Chris.
So this is especially to Jeff and Patrick. So for me, what I love about gamification, I actually think that direct marketers and people who have done CRM and all this, a lot of optimization testing, tends to be some of the best gamification people because they know all the variables, and gamification allows you to kind of personalize that. That being said, I feel that gamification is having this challenge between being a long-term game versus the mentality right now that you have to go big and go home, or you would never even sell it through. Apart from the idea of going for the clients with the big balls, so to speak. Your words. Have you had any success in actually helping to implement that longer term vision? Because for the most part of it, I find gamification a sense of being very, very heavy analytics driven. So what have you done in order to help overcome some of that?
So from our perspective, what we try and do, and we work with brands, I don't know, maybe 75% of the, agencies 75% of the time, brands about 25% of the time. And I tell our account executives that if we're working with someone in a brand, we want them to get promoted. So we have a lot of analytics about what works and what's worked for past clients. And so we can present those analytics, because what happens with an agency is they constantly have to come up with something new. And every chief marketing officer is saying it has to be social and you have to be able to measure it. And those are sort of the mantras that we keep hearing, are those two things. So we can go back and say, okay, so-and-so Lexus did this fantasy sailing event, or Nissan did this golf swing analysis. And we can provide new and interesting data around what works, but more importantly, who it works with. So we could take data and say, if you want the under 40-year-old women who are looking to buy a car, here's the game you should play. It's karaoke with Rihanna. So from our perspective, that's the type of data that we can do to keep. But our whole goal is to catalyze, and we see it all the time. And I'm glad Jeff said it, because we see a lot of agencies who just want to keep their job. And we say, hey, we know this would really kick ass. You should really present the client. They're like, we've never seen it before. And the ones who we can finally talk into it, works out really well for us.
Yeah, so we sold our last agency to a CRM agency, which is where we got and then spent too long working at that CRM agency. And that's where we got a lot of the founding pillars that became our platform, is how do we take this concept of CRM and loyalty and make it more engaging for users and extend it above the transaction and really look at it as a long-term solution. And some clients are ready for that and some aren't. So it's, you've got some clients you have to crawl and then walk and then run, and some you meet and right out the gate you're running. And I think it's kind of, you got to see where they are and make sure that you're giving them a solution that aligns with their current positioning and their comfort level.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for an
awesome panel. These guys will stick around, and we thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you hopefully next month. Thanks, guys.